When I came out, it was on Halloween night. I wrote a letter to my mother, and it was not a pleasant conversation. I don't really remember what was said, but I remember her saying that my grandparents would not have it. I want to come out as soon as I can, but I am always very aware of my grandparents, especially because I only have one side of my family left, so losing that would be horrible. I don't know how I'd do it. I regret doing it in the way that I did. It's affected relationship with my family and like how I act towards them, knowing it now.
His mum immediately sort of put her head in the sand and ignored it. In my opinion, I think she should be more mature and say, no, it's not a thing I understand or particularly want to understand, but I understand that this is a factor in my child's life and I will respect it. The atmosphere at our school that we went to, the only way I can think to put it is bullying culture. Coming out as transgender basically just put me on a hit list for people who were considered more popular than me.
I think it got to a point around like year 11 where I could block my dead name being called out on the register and just pretend that it didn't affect me. I did not feel safe whatsoever because I'd already been like bullied for thinking I was a lesbian or something.
At our school there was a mental health service bit called SSO. They took the funding away from that quite early on in our school careers, I guess. And me and Dom were both enrolled in counselling there. When they took away the funding for that, he was sort of just left out to dry. It wasn't... During those times, I know he was really struggling. There was a couple times where I was worried that I would lose him.
It's very weird having to talk about it because, like, I'm very much within my own head, obviously. So I think about killing myself more than I should, and I know that I do it. It's not really something I have any control over anymore. It just sort of comes, and then I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna be shit for the rest of the day. And then I go home, and then I sort of have to deal with myself. Because if I'm feeling that way around people, I can sort of push it back and bounce off of them and just try and be a person for 6 hours, and then I go home and then I have to take care of myself and I have to try not to hurt myself and I have to make a distinct effort to not do anything stupid.
If I were to define dysphoria as just feeling a disconnect to your body that you were born as, I don't want to stereotype here, but I think, at least in my opinion, Dom has it a lot worse than me, in the fact that he has a lot of other mental health issues alongside his dysphoria, whereas I would only really say I battle with my dysphoria daily now.
In relation to mental illnesses, I guess, they all sort of feed into one another. So say my anxiety feeds into my dysphoria because I'm anxious about being perceived as the wrong gender.
So private healthcare basically means I'm paying for it, I'm not going through the NHS. I am on the NHS waiting list for GIDS, healthcare service for trans people, basically. I was referred to that in 2019, but the waiting times are, I think at the moment, 4 to 5 years, probably 3 to 5.
As much as I would like to save as much money as possible, I know it's not gonna happen. If private, it may take a while, but it's not gonna take nearly as long as sitting on an NHS waiting list. I trust a private doctor more. I've read all sorts of horror stories online that someone could be on the NHS waiting list for months, even years, and it's waiting that long, even though I've waited so much already. Painful, don't want to think about that. And even though private, everyone's going private, but then that's going to extend the waiting lists. But I just trust private more in that sense.
He said he definitely wouldn't say his mental health has gotten better, but it's gotten more bearable. I hope this documentary can be therapeutic for him, really. I hope that this has given him almost a space to be open about a lot of stuff he's probably maybe bottled up for a little while, because it's hard seeing your friend going through an emotional point you know he's not out of yet, and trying to almost mask it under humour.
I do sort of feel like I'm not masculine enough, but when I'm in a certain mood I find it very easy to discredit my dysphoria just like that. When people say things like, oh, they were born in the wrong body, that's quite a weird thing to say. It makes it almost sound like it's a wrong thing. It's just me.